I didn't collapse dramatically, no clutching my chest, no final words, no audience. I simply faded. One moment I was standing behind the counter at work, pretending my hands weren't shaking, pretending the room wasn't tilting. The next, the floor rushed up like it had been waiting for me all along. Someone shouted my name. Someone else shouted for help. Then everything went quiet in the way it does when your body finally decides it's done asking for permission. When I woke up, the ceiling lights were too bright and my mouth tasted like metal, a hospital room. The slow, steady beep of a machine beside me. A nurse noticed my eyes flutter and smiled, professional and kind. "You gave us a scare," she said. "We called your emergency contact. I waited for the relief to follow that sentence." "It didn't, your daughter," she added. "We left messages." I nodded, because that's what you do when you still believe someone is coming. Hours passed, the kind of hours that stretch, the kind that give your thoughts room to wander into places you've avoided for years. The nurse came back, then a doctor. Tests were explained. Stress, exhaustion, dehydration. Nothing immediately fatal. Just a body that had been screaming quietly for too long. "Someone should be here with you," the doctor said gently. "I know." I replied just as gently. They left me alone again. I checked my phone. No missed calls. No texts. I refreshed. Still nothing. I told myself she was busy. Work, traffic, meetings, life. I told myself I had raised her better than to ignore a call from a hospital. I told myself a lot of things because hope is stubborn like that. Then I opened social media. I don't know why I did. Maybe I was looking for proof she was on her way. Maybe I just wanted distraction. Maybe some part of me already knew and wanted to get it over with. Post was only 20 minutes old. A photo of her fiancé, arms slung casually around friends at a bar. Drinks lifted, smiles wide, no worries in sight. The caption hit harder than the fall ever did. Asterisk, asterisk, finally, a day without the drama king. Asterisk, asterisk, I stared at the screen. Once, twice again, my name wasn't tagged, but it didn't need to be. I recognized the joke. I'd heard versions of it before, muttered, laughed off, dismissed as harmless teasing. Asterisk, you worry too much. Asterisk, asterisk, you're always so dramatic. Asterisk, asterisk, it's not that serious. Asterisk, apparently, collapsing at work and being taken to the hospital wasn't serious either. Just another inconvenience, another overreaction, another burden they could joke about while clinking glasses. My hands started shaking again, but this time it wasn't medical. It was realization. I wasn't lying in that bed thinking, asterisk, why didn't my daughter come? Asterisk, I was thinking, asterisk, she never planned to. Asterisk, the nurse came back to check my vitals and paused when she saw my face. "Are you okay?" she asked. I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell her that something inside me had cracked open in a way no scan would ever show. But I smiled instead. "I'm fine," I said, "just tired." She nodded, adjusted the Roman 4, and left. I turned my phone face down. Memories crept in uninvited, nights spent awake worrying about tuition payments, skipped meals so she could eat better. The way I'd always answered the phone no matter the hour because asterisk what if she needs me asterisk I thought of every time I had shown up, every recital, every crisis, every tear. And now when I couldn't stand on my own, when my body had literally given out, I was a punchline. A drama king. Something shifted then, quietly. No anger yet. Just a heavy, settling truth. I had been useful. I had been dependable. I had been generous. But I had stopped being asterisk, important asterisk, a long time ago. The doctor eventually discharged me with instructions to rest, a word that felt almost offensive after a lifetime of doing the opposite. I signed the papers myself. No one stood beside me. No one asked if I needed a ride home. As I walked out of the hospital, the automatic doors sliding open like nothing monumental had just happened, I felt strangely clear. This wasn't just a bad day. This was a line, and I had crossed it alone. I used to believe love was proven by how much you were willing to endure quietly. No complaints, no expectations, just show up, again and again. That belief didn't come from nowhere. It came from raising my daughter. From the day I first held her, impossibly small and angry at the world, I made a promise I never said out loud. Asterisk, I will make this easier for you, even if it's hard for me. Asterisk, and I kept that promise in ways no one ever saw. I worked overtime when my body begged me not to. I took the late shifts, the weekends, the holidays. I learned how to stretch a paycheck until it squealed. I told myself sleep was optional, so were dreams. When she wanted piano lessons, I figured it out. When she wanted better schools, I figured it out. When she cried about not having what other kids had, I figured it out. I always did. By the time she was old enough to notice the cost, she was already used to the comfort. Sacrifice had become invisible, like oxygen, essential, but unremarkable. When she moved out, I helped furnish her apartment. When tuition went up, I covered the difference. When her car broke down, my savings broke with it. I never kept track. Love doesn't invoice, or so I thought. Then she met him. At first, I wanted to like him. He was charming in that easy way people have when they've never had to scrape by. Confident, well-dressed, always joking, he shook my hand firmly the first time we met and called me by my first name without asking. It felt small at the time. It wasn't. He had opinions about everything, including me. He laughed when I worried about her finances. "You stress too much," he'd say, smiling like it was a compliment. When I offered advice, he'd roll his eyes playfully. When I asked questions, he'd answer for her. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, I became the punchline. If I called too often, I was clingy. If I asked about her health, I was dramatic. If I offered help, I was controlling, and she started to agree. Not outright, not at first, but she stopped defending me. She stopped meeting my eyes when he joked at my expense. She laughed along, the way people do when laughter feels easier than conflict. I told myself it was just a phase. That love changes people, that she'd find her way back. Meanwhile, plans were being made, plans I wasn't invited to, but was somehow expected to fund. The house came up casually one night. My house, the one I'd paid off brick by brick. Well, when we move in someday. Her fiancé said, already rearranging the furniture in his head, "We'll need to renovate the kitchen. Asterisk when. Asterisk not asterisk if asterisk. Not asterisk, maybe asterisk." I remember sitting there, nodding slowly, while something cold settled in my chest. They talked about knocking down walls, about resale value, about how much easier things would be once everything was in one place. I was still alive, still paying the bills, still working, but in their minds I was already a transition period. They assumed the business would be theirs too, the one I'd built from nothing. They spoke about it like inheritance was a guarantee, not a gift, like my role was to keep things running until they were ready to take over. No one asked me what I wanted, not once, and the worst part, I kept giving. I paid for dinners where I was barely spoken to. I helped with wedding expenses I wasn't consulted on. I smiled through jokes that chipped away at me piece by piece, telling myself that being needed, even quietly, even conditionally, was better than being alone. But lying in that hospital bed had changed something. For the first time, I saw the pattern clearly. I wasn't loved for who I was valued for what I provided, and when I stopped being useful, when I became inconvenient, weak, or dramatic, I was disposable. That realization hurt more than any diagnosis. When I got home from the hospital, I didn't unpack my discharge papers right away. I sat at the kitchen table in the house they had already claimed in their minds, surrounded by the silence I'd earned. I opened a drawer and pulled out a folder I hadn't looked at in years. Deeds, contracts, statements. Everything they assumed was theirs. Still mine. I ran my fingers over the papers and felt something unfamiliar rise up through the exhaustion. Not rage, clarity, and clarity, I was learning, could be far more dangerous than anger ever was. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry. Anger is loud and restless. This was quieter than that. It was the calm that comes when a decision has already been made, and your body is just catching up. Morning light crept through the kitchen window, landing on the folder I'd left on the table. I poured myself coffee I barely tasted and sat across from it, like it was a person I needed to finally acknowledge. For years I had treated ownership like something temporary, as if everything I worked for was merely being held until it could be passed on. I'd never thought of it as power. That changed. I picked up my phone, one call, no dramatic speeches, no confrontation, just a number I'd saved long ago and never thought I'd need again. "Good morning," the lawyer said, voice crisp, alert. "How can I help you? I want to sell," I said. There was a pause, not confusion, just confirmation. "Everything, yes." The word felt solid, heavy, real. We talked logistics, timelines, paperwork. I listened, asked questions, took notes. My voice didn't shake. When we hung up, my hands were steady. That surprised me the most. I made a second call. Then a third, an agent, a buyer, a financial advisor. Each conversation peeled away another assumption that had been placed on my life without permission. By noon, the process had started. By evening, it was irreversible. I didn't announce anything. I didn't warn anyone. Why would I? No one had warned me before deciding my future for me. The first sign that something was wrong came the next day. My phone buzzed. Her name lit up the screen. I watched it ring. Then it rang again and again. A text followed. Asterisk, hey, quick question. Did you talk to someone about the house? Asterisk, asterisk, call me. Asterisk, not asterisk, are you okay? Asterisk, not asterisk, how are you feeling? Asterisk, just concern over what they believed belonged to them. I set the phone face down and went about my day. By the third day, the messages had shifted tone. Asterisk, there's a rumor you're selling. Asterisk, asterisk, is this some kind of misunderstanding? Asterisk, asterisk, please call me. Asterisk, her fian. Say texted too, short, sharp. Asterisk, we need to talk. Asterisk, asterisk, this affects us. Asterisk, that one almost made me laugh. Asterisk us. Asterisk, as if my collapse, my hospital bed, my loneliness hadn't affected me. As if asterisk, I asterisk, hadn't been the one affected all along. I kept my silence, not out of cruelty, but because silence was the first boundary I had ever enforced. Behind the scenes, everything moved quickly. Papers were signed, dates were set, money shifted hands. The house that had been treated like a waiting prize was no longer available for dreaming. I updated my will. I closed accounts that had been shared in theory. I redirected funds that had been assumed. I planned for a future that didn't revolve around being needed by people who only showed up when they wanted something. When I finally answered a call, it wasn't hers. It was the agent. We're all set. She said, "Congratulations." I thanked her and hung up. Then, for the first time since the hospital, I sat back and breathed deeply. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel cruel. I felt free. The storm arrived that evening. Voicemails piled up. Texts turned frantic. Accusations slipped in between pleas. Asterisk, how could you do this without telling us? Asterisk, asterisk, this is unfair. Asterisk, asterisk, you're overreacting. Asterisk, there it was again. Dramatic overreacting. I deleted the messages without listening to most of them. Their words no longer had the authority they once did. Because somewhere between collapsing on a workroom floor and making that one phone call, I had finally understood something essential. Power doesn't come from being loud. It comes from knowing what's yours and choosing what to do with it. And I had only just begun. They showed up unannounced. I knew it was them the moment the knocking started, sharp, impatient, entitled, "The Kind of Knock That Assumes the Door Will Open Because It Always Has Before." I didn't rush. I finished my tea, rinsed the cup, and set it carefully in the sink. For once, I refused to let urgency that wasn't mine dictate my pace. When I opened the door, my daughter stood there with her arms crossed, eyes flashing between worry and anger. Her fiancé hovered just behind her, jaw tight, already rehearsing what he planned to say. "We need to talk," she said. I stepped aside and let them in. They walked through the house like strangers who thought they owned the place, glancing at walls, furniture, memories. I wondered if they noticed how bare it already felt, how much of myself I had begun to remove. Her fiancé spoke first. "Of course he did. You blindsided us," he said. "You can't just sell the house like that." I looked at him calmly. I did. My daughter's voice cracked. "Why would you do this? We were counting on it." There it was. Not asterisk, "Are you okay?" Asterisk, not asterisk, "Why didn't you tell us you were struggling?" Asterisk, just asterisk, "We were counting on it." Asterisk, I gestured for them to sit. They didn't, that was fine. "Do you remember the day I collapsed at work?" I asked. She hesitated. The doctors called you." I continued. "You didn't come," her fiancé scoffed lightly. "You weren't dying. You always make things sound worse than they are." I turned to him slowly. "You posted a photo that day." He stiffened. I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table between us. Screen lit. The caption frozen in time. Asterisk, asterisk, finally, a day without the drama king. Asterisk, asterisk, the room went silent. My daughter stared at the screen, as if seeing it for the first time. Her face drained of color. "I didn't know you posted that," she whispered, "but you saw it." I said, "And you stayed where you were." Tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't think. That's the problem," I said gently. "You stopped thinking about me at all." Her fiancé stepped forward. "This doesn't give you the right to punish us." I met his gaze. "This isn't punishment. It's consequence." I explained everything then calmly, clearly, without raised voices. I told them how I had given and given, how being called dramatic had become a way to silence my pain, how being useful had replaced being loved. "I nearly collapsed alone," I said, "and while I was lying in a hospital bed, you were laughing about how peaceful your day was without me." My daughter started crying. "Real tears this time. I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't realize how bad it was." "I believe you," I replied. But realization doesn't undo neglect. Her fiancé tried to interrupt again, but I raised my hand. "I'm not discussing finances with you anymore," I said. "Or my health, or my decisions. Those privileges ended when you decided my worth was measured by what I provided." He looked angry. "Cornered, everything is sold." I added, "The money is secure, and my will reflects my wishes." My daughter looked up sharply. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said softly, "that my future is no longer built around being taken for granted." They left not long after. There was no dramatic exit, no slammed doors, just confusion, regret, and the quiet collapse of expectations. After they were gone, I sat alone in the living room and felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. Weeks later, I moved somewhere smaller, brighter, somewhere no one expected anything from me except my presence. I started saying no without apology. I stopped explaining myself. I slept better, ate better, laughed more. My daughter calls sometimes now, not often, not like before, but when she does, she listens, and her fiancé. "He doesn't joke about drama anymore. Funny thing about drama, it only exists when you think someone else owes you a stage." Turns out, reclaiming your life doesn't require theatrics, just one moment of truth and one phone call.